One, two. Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of The Kickout, the final word in professional wrestling. I am your host, the Wizard CZ. We're back in our studio this week for The Kickout. Last couple of weeks, we had some guests on promoting the big Bridge City Slam this past weekend, but of course, I'm not by myself. I can't do this alone. Joining me, as always, my co-host and tag team partner, never wrong, Nick Bull. Mr. Nick Bull, how you feeling today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Coming off a weekend of wrestling. We went to Bridge City Slam in Ottumwa. A little tired, but, recovering well, and lots of good wrestling to talk about.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
What do you want to talk about today?
This was something that we talked about on the car ride up and back to Bridge City. And it's kind of mistaken. I kind of want to talk about both sides of the coin here. Does one great match make a shitty card better? And then the opposite of that, does one terrible match make a great card horrible or bad?
Say that again?
So
I know what you're trying to say, and I'm trying to pin my response. So say it again.
Does a great match make a terrible card good? And no.
Next question.
Does a terrible match make a great card bad?
No.
So you don't think it takes away in either case?
I don't. I mean, I'd like to think if there were 7 matches on the card and one of them was an absolute stinker, I wouldn't even think about that match. If I'm reviewing a show, yeah, I'll tear it apart. But if I'm going to go back and watch a show and I found random show A, let's just say from 6 years ago, and there was a horrible, horrible match on it, I'll watch that show. So having a bad match on a show does not take away from the rest of the show, in my opinion.
And I can agree with that to an extent, but because you're not going to remember that one bad match. You're going to remember the good parts about the show. But I'll counter that on the opposite end and say that if you have a stinker of a show and you have one fantastic match, you're not going to remember the show. You're going to remember the match.
Correct. You're going to think back to, oh, remember that show we went to? Yeah, the show was awful, but we got this match out of it. Yeah. I'll change my answer then from before, because can a great match save a horrible show? Yes. It gives it a better light, I guess. I mean, so many times we've gone back and watched a show for one match, right?
Right.
Was the rest of that show bad? Maybe not, but you're going to remember it for that match. Like, let me say this, WrestleMania 26, maybe not the most memorable WrestleMania, but we got a Shawn Michaels Undertaker match out of it. Was it as good as the first one in 25? No, but it was still a good match. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I see both ends to it, but I don't think – I think a good match, a great match can save a bad card.
And that's fair. I don't know that it can save the whole card, though. Because like I said, if I'm watching a mediocre show or a show that's just outright awful and there's that one match, it's not going to make the show great for me. It's just going to make that match great for me.
Okay. Yeah. The show's not completely saved, but it did give us this match. So, yes. Man, it is kind of a tricky situation. Can a show save a match? I think so. I guess it just depends. I mean, not every instance is going to be the same, right? That's just the way it is with wrestling. It's so wide open that not everything is going to be the same. So it's hard to compare this to something.
Let me spin this a different way.
Okay.
If you have a decent show and the main event is absolute trash, is that going to leave a bad taste in your mouth for the whole show? And I'm talking like I'm thinking of off the top of my head, December to Dismember. I'm thinking,
That's
was it?
the extreme in this
That's
situation.
the extreme. But let me throw another one at you. Uh, TNA. What the hell was the name of the show? The show where Jeff Hardy was completely off his gourd, and Sting had to put him out. Sting had to just snipe him
Right.
in 10 seconds. Was it Turning Point 2011?
I can't remember. I know what you're talking about though. Man, I think that's an extreme, but yeah, I would say if you've got decent matches and the main event doesn't deliver, yes, people are going to remember the show for having a crappy main event instead of a great undercard.
That's fair.
In
That's
my
kind of
opinion,
what I understand
you're
too.
gonna immediately go back to, oh my gosh, that was the main event. It didn't deliver, but the rest of the show was good. You're not. I wouldn't say, oh, the show is great, but the main event sucks. Like you're gonna go to the lasting point from that show. Oh, the main event
Right.
sucked. Yeah, there were some good matches on it, but man, the main event didn't deliver.
Yeah, and first impressions are one of the biggest things in anything you do, but that last impression that lingers with you, that's what sticks with a lot of people. And if you're in this build in the especially if you're there, if you're live for an event and the main event is a letdown and you're walking away thinking, well, that just was garbage. For me personally, I would lean towards, well, I'm not going to watch that show ever again because I was let down at the end by it.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Imagine you spent thousands and thousands of dollars and you went to a PLE and you only got to go to one night. And matches 1 through 5 were great. Match 6 sucked. You're going to be bitching about match 6 as you walk out of that arena.
Right.
I feel, because you spent that much money and the payoff wasn't what you wanted, wasn't what you expected. You thought it could have been something else. So yeah, I think not having a good main event definitely takes away from having a great undercard.
I think you're right, and I don't think there's any way around it. But what do you at home think? If you're tuning in, leave a comment below, like, share, subscribe. Tell us what you think. Do you think a good match can save a card? Do you think a bad match can ruin a card? We want to hear from you. We like interacting with our fans because we're here for you. We're fans ourselves.
And hopefully, we don't see a lot of bad matches on shows.
Right.
I mean, I'm having a hard time going through my memory right now, trying to think the last time I saw an absolute just craptastic match on a big stage. Maybe Jay and Jimmy from WrestleMania.
That's where
40.
my mind went.
Maybe that's where I'll go. And that was bad. That was awful. But it also didn't take away from the show for me. The show ended up being, fairly decent. So yeah,
Right.
that's the one that that's the first thing I can think of off the top of my head, where you went out there and just the match was it was not good.
Yeah, that's kind of where my mind went when you phrased it that way as well. Uh, but Nick, I'm excited. This Sunday, I let you book this Sunday show.
What?
I reached out and I got our guest on the show, but you were the one who came up with who we should talk to, and I'm going to let you talk about it for a minute here.
Very, very excited about our next show. We will be having on Joyce Poston. Joyce Poston is from here locally in the Quad Cities, from where we record, and she has a book. It came out a couple years ago, and it's about her fandom, her ringside seat to the AWA. It talks about her becoming a wrestling fan, going to wrestling events, and then just the different types of wrestlers she saw as she became more involved as a wrestling fan. She became a driver, picking wrestlers up from the airport, and has great relationships, great stories in her book. I can't recommend her book enough, because if you're from this area or from the Midwest, it's a great history. It's a love letter to the history of wrestling in this area. Showcases a lot of events from the Quad Cities. Joyce's pictures are featured throughout the book. And guys, we've talked with Joyce a couple times Last time I talked to her, it was up in Waterloo for the
Yes.
Tragos Thez Hall of Fame weekend, and she's excited. She's nervous, but I don't know why, because she wrote a tremendous book. I think if you have to write a book, you shouldn't have to be nervous about anything. But we're going to have Joyce here. It's going to be great to talk some old AWA with her. I got lots of questions about shows back in those days, because obviously I wasn't around for them, but I cannot wait to hear what she has to say. Not only just about the Quad Cities history, but just her being a wrestling fandom and the history she writes about in her book.
Yes. I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun. Not the first author we've had on. That won't be the last either. We have some other great writers coming on the show. So we'll talk about that at another time, though, Nick.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts for this episode?
No, this is our midweek show. We're glad you're here. This is the Kick Out, of course. I'm never wrong, Nick Bull. He's the Wizard CZ. We are card subject to change. That is our long form show. Comes to you on Sundays usually, unless there is a wrestling event scheduled. Looking forward to the upcoming episode with Joyce Poston. Looking forward to the long form show of Card Subject to Change. If you like what you hear at either place, like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a review. Hit us up on socials. We'd love to talk wrestling. Love to hear from you. But that about wraps things up here on the Kickout. For the Wizard CZ, I am never wrong, Nick Bull. This has been the Kickout, the final word in professional wrestling.
This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.